Hey everyone, welcome to Tech Talks. Today we're diving into the world of generative AI, a technology that's reshaping how we create and interact with content.
I'm really excited to get into this. Generative AI is everywhere nowadays, from generating text and art to even music, right?
Absolutely. It's like it's like AI isn't just analyzing data anymore. It's actually creating new stuff. Think about it. Text, images, code,
Yep.
sometimes even music. It's a game changer.
Yeah, but as much as it seems magical, there's a lot that goes into its power, like those large neural networks. Aren't they mostly the backbone behind what we're seeing?
Exactly. These massive neural networks, like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, have been trained on billions of words from books, articles, and even
Uh-huh.
websites. They essentially learn language patterns, and then, boom, boom, they produce responses that sound really human-like.
And it's not just text, right? There are models like Midjourney for images and Google's Music LM for composing music. It's like the whole creative process is being revolutionized here.
Totally. For instance, there's that case of an artist who won an art contest with an image generated by Midjourney. That incident really stirred up questions about what we consider real art. It raises so many
Interesting.
questions on creativity and authenticity.
But then there's the flip side, right? It's not all just creation and innovation. There are,
Yeah, definitely.
fairly significant impacts on the job market and ethical dilemmas too.
Right on. Let's talk about real-world impact. Generative AI is already in play in customer service with smarter chatbots, automating reports, and even helping personalize content for huge
Yep,
platforms.
that's true.
Companies like Duolingo, Spotify, and big banks are using it to streamline so many tasks.
Sure, it saves time and can boost productivity, but what about the jobs that might disappear? It seems like hundreds of millions of jobs could be affected if the trend continues.
Exactly. And even though experts say new roles will emerge, reskilling millions isn't exactly a snap of the fingers process. Goldman
Mhm.
Sachs throws around numbers like 300 million jobs at risk, which is huge.
That really makes you wonder about the economic and social ripple effects. But on the creative side, there's a ton of potential. Writers hitting a block, programmers using GitHub Copilot, doctors drafting reports. It shows there's a lot of utility here.
Yup, it's like having a supercharged assistant in your pocket. Writers can use it to beat writer's block, and programmers get a coding buddy that suggests lines of code and catches bugs. Even
Right.
educators are tailoring homework to fit each student's needs.
And big brands are not left out either, like Coca-Cola launching campaigns where fans generate their own art using AI. That's pretty next level engagement.
For sure. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of the risks and ethical dilemmas, because that's where things get a bit messy.
Yeah, indeed. For instance, misinformation is a huge issue. Deepfakes are a prime example. You can have fake videos where it looks like someone said something they never did. It turns reality into a questionable narrative.
Right? And then there's bias. If the AI's training data is biased, it just reinforces those biases without us even noticing immediately. That's a big concern,
Mhm.
especially when decisions based on AI affect real lives.
Also, the copyright issue, artists are starting to sue companies because their work is used without permission to train these models. It really leads to a debate who owns or should own the output.
And then, privacy concerns hit hard. Think about it. Your personal data or even your face might be used to create fake content without your consent.
Absolutely.
It's a complex problem without a clear, simple fix.
Speaking of complexity, let's not ignore the environmental impact. Training these models isn't cheap. It's like running a small country's electricity consumption, sometimes for weeks.
Yes, exactly. The energy demand is enormous, plus the need for super expensive hardware like NVIDIA
Yep, that's
GPUs.
true.
And while the tech might feel free to the user, it's backed by billions in infrastructure costs.
Which really narrows down who can build these models. Mostly big companies like OpenAI, Google, Meta, you name it. That inherently skews power and could widen the digital divide.
Exactly. And that ties into how the global impact plays out. Wealthy countries have the resources, while developing nations often get left behind. Although there
That's a
are
critical
open source
point.
efforts, like those from Hugging Face, aiming to democratize access.
True, but open source AI comes with its own challenges, such as potential misuse. It's like handing over a very powerful tool without guaranteeing safe handling practices.
Yup, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Now, stepping away from the technicalities, let's chat about the creative and fun cases of generative AI.
Sure, I mean, beyond the job automation and ethical puzzles, there are really exciting applications. Writers, for example, are using AI to develop unexpected plot twists.
And programmers love tools like GitHub Copilot. They describe it as having a buddy who helps you get unstuck in your code.
Right,
Even in
that's a cool way
healthcare,
to think about
doctors
it.
are exploring AI to summarize patient histories, which can save a ton of time.
And let's not forget education. Teachers can create personalized exercises for students so that learning becomes much more tailored and interactive.
Exactly. It's like every industry is finding its own, creative way to use generative AI. Even entertainment is catching on. Hollywood is experimenting with AI for visual effects, recreating younger versions of actors, and more.
Yeah, it's a real transformation. That actually reminds me of the controversies in Hollywood, writers striking over fears of being replaced by machine generated scripts. It shows that while technology can boost creativity, it can also threaten traditional roles.
Definitely. And here's a tough angle. Should we always favor machine-written stories or keep that human touch in our art? It's a delicate balance.
Exactly, and that's where society needs to step in and decide. How do we harness the benefits of generative AI while protecting human creativity and ethics?
Great question. For starters, digital literacy is crucial. Everyone needs to know how to use these tools properly and be aware of their limits.
Yeah, teaching people the basics can empower them to use AI wisely. And then there's regulation. Governments and companies must work together to set up frameworks that ensure ethical use. Some experts even compare it to regulating nuclear energy due to the massive potential for harm if misused.
For sure, and having clear rules can help ensure that AI remains a tool for augmentation, not a complete replacement of human insight.
Absolutely. But I still wonder if these regulations can be enforced globally. Large companies might push back, and different countries have different standards.
That's a valid point, Leo. I mean, it's not just about setting rules, it's about harmonizing standards internationally. And as you said, that's a huge challenge.
Right.
Moving to expert opinions. You know, Jeffrey Hinton has been very vocal about the risks of AI, even leaving Google to highlight these dangers. And
That's a
then
strong
Sam
move.
Altman is calling for global regulation, comparing it to nuclear energy management, because the stakes are so high.
Yeah, that really gives you a perspective on how seriously some of these giants are taking the impacts of generative AI.
Exactly. And as we wrap up, it all comes down to this. Harnessing the power of AI for good while mitigating its risks requires a fine balance of innovation, ethics, and, well, regulatory oversight.
Absolutely. I'm curious though, with all these transformative potentials and challenges, what do you think is the most pressing issue we need to tackle?
For me, it's definitely the ethical side, ensuring that while we tap into creativity and automation, we don't lose sight of fairness, privacy, and, the human touch.
Yeah, that's a critical balance to strike. And speaking of the human touch, let's throw a few questions out for everyone listening. What tasks in your day to day would you trust AI with, and where do you draw the line? Are you worried about your career path, or do you see AI as just an extra tool in the mix?
Great questions to think about. And if you have thoughts, drop us a comment on our socials or send us a quick message.
Right.
We'd love to dive deeper based on your feedback in future episodes.
Yep, that's it for today's discussion. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into generative AI. Stay curious, and we'll catch you next time on Tech Talks.